County, thank you so much for the invitation to come out here tonight. I know with the rain it kind of dampened the spirits a little bit, but in the same instance, it's a time to get fired up. And I'm going to split my little talk into 2 points. I know John, if he was here, would hammer on vote. And that's what the second part of this is going to be about. Because I understand where he comes from. My son was just born 7 weeks ago, so as he's done, he's put his emphasis on his family, which is exactly what I did too. So I understand that. So my second part is going to be on voting. My primary part is going to be talking and introducing your next 3rd district candidate that is going to serve for the good of people in Washington. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. I had the privilege of sitting down to an open forum today with Congressman Stutzman and Scott Weiss, the Libertarian candidate. One thing that hammers on me is if you call for an open forum to be hosted by a Chamber of Commerce, to be held at 10 a.m., if you called it, you need to be there. He was not at 10 a.m. He was there at 11 a.m. And that's kind of what the rigged game is all about. Playing by your set of rules, where everybody else has to follow them, but you don't. And as we sat there and listened, it was extremes that were being discussed. It wasn't for our infrastructure needs that are happening all around us. It's not for our Clean Water Act that now has communities struggling to decide how to separate water from wastewater. It's not on what our roads are. Traveling down some of the state roads, we're now seeing how they're chipped and sealed. And that is not a good common sense approach. We watch how our electrical grids can flicker at the slightest storm that comes through the sun. Or in the storms that come through like tonight, where it flicker off and you don't know when it's coming back. You know, these are the types of infrastructure needs that we see from Kosciusko County to Steuben County, all the way down to Jay. And it's the same thing that I hear from the citizens. When are we going to have a representative that listens and that is willing to roll up the sleeve and do something about it? Well, now we've got a time for change. As John said, I've been in social work for the past 7 years, and that's not where you start your cuts. You also don't start your cuts to balance a budget on the backs of our children, and we've seen that with education. My wife's a 3rd grade teacher at Prairie Heights, and so I've watched how tirelessly she works for her classroom just to provide for the needs of those children. And she mentioned one student that came from Michigan last year. He's in 2nd grade, comes into her 3rd grade class. She mentioned that where he's at isn't where he needs to be for our class. He's behind. And it's not because of the 2 different systems. It's because the systems aren't set up the same. So if we have a position where children or families move across for better opportunities, sometimes that education doesn't follow. I'm with David. Common Core is something that we need to get rid of. But we need to replace it with something that's going to work. And my vision is to put in a national guidelines for each grade. Set of ideas, set of principles that need to be taught, but to then give those resources to our local community schools so that they can provide for the needs of their children. Because every school is different. And down in Fort Wayne Community Schools, you go between schools, 2 blocks. It's a different philosophy, different personality, a different need. That's where our emphasis needs to go. Balanced budgets are a great tool, and it's something that the federal government has been without for some time. But you cannot put the cuts of the middle class and cuts towards education as your first line, because that is our future. Now, we've also watched how dysfunctional Congress is lately. You know, it's pitted one party against the other. And what we see is a continued cycle of kicking the can down the road. We watched that last week, or I'm sorry, this past week, where they passed the continued resolution. And for anybody that doesn't know, that is basically an example of, we can't deal with it now, we'll deal with it later. That is to fund the government. And the only reason why it was passed was because it did until December 11th. So the current Congress can get through the election and then deal with it later. that, as I'm starting to determine, is a status quo that has got to go. We can't keep having representatives leap to and out of every self-created crisis. That goes from our infrastructure, that goes for our balanced budget, and that goes just basically talking to each other. When I was a kid in school, I would never envision that you just keep this hatred towards somebody else. To me, our vision of solving problems was you take the problems to the golf course. It may sound silly to go out to the golf course and solve a problem. But what we learned was when you take yourself away from a situation, something that is not even dealing with your problems, and you sit in a golf cart for 9 or 18 holes, you have an opportunity to discuss stuff without all that anger. And by the end of that 9 holes, or the end of 18 holes, something amazing happens. Solutions take place. Now as an adult, you can sit down for dinner, something relaxing, and discuss the problems. That's what's missing. There is no more adults in DC. It's all a bunch of spoiled, adult, non-determined children. Because that's what they act like, spoiled. That if you don't get your way, we're going to stomp our feet and cry out, we need to get respect. But I just don't know what that is. For me, this election is pretty simple. You have an alternative between a common sense approach, problem solver, and me. Somebody that understands what a balanced budget looks like and how to apply it. Someone that understands the needs of every part of the communities in ways that does not involve taxes and it does not involve spending cuts on the backs of our hardworking Americans. But we can put this thing together, and it's as simple as that. We have to be united and not divisive. Now, as John would mention, voting is pretty essential this time around. There's expected that the voting turnout is going to be pretty low. And when I say pretty low, we saw some counties at 5% for the primary. I think the highest one was 23%. I talked with one poll worker over in DeKalb County not too long ago, and they said for 12 hours, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., not a single person came in and cast a ballot. When I looked at the van and looked at how many people were registered in that precinct, it was over 600. 600 people chose not to cast their vote to have their voices heard. They wanted a 5% of that population to speak for them. I know. It's kind of disheartening. But one thing that's more disheartening is what I saw on Thursday this past week. I went to the VA open session that they had so that veterans could discuss their problems, discuss the issues that they faced, and what they could do about it. And there's 4 administrators before the VA systems in northern Indiana that was there. Story after story comes out as far as what's going on, why they can't get benefits, why they can't be seen by a doctor, and why they can't get the service that they need. One story particularly stuck out to me. A gentleman was injured in battle right above the knee, and due to a misdiagnosis, he lost his knee. But when he comes up for his claims, since the knee was what was injured, and he no longer has his knee, he can't get a disability claim. That's our system. That's our system that's broken. And we have a chance to change that by getting someone in there that can do something about it. But we cannot sit idly by and allow people that we'll let them go vote for us because they'll decide it. It's our chance to change it. We have an opportunity to change it. Our vets deserve it. Our children deserve it. We deserve it. But if we sit at home on election day or during the early voting and we allow a 12% to vote for you, you got to ask yourself one question. Who will that 12% be? Now, as David mentioned, there is extremes in the tickets. And my opponent, who I do not give name recognition to, because to me he has not earned it, is one of those extremes. He is one that was vocal in his support of the government shutdown. He was vocal that he sits on the VA appropriations, and has the abilities to affect veterans and their homeless status, but he has not done anything for it. He has not stood up against his party. He has not stood up and fought for the people. I will be that fighter. Our children deserve better. Our veterans deserve better. Our working class deserves better. And our senior citizens deserve better. That's why I got into this race, was to give an opportunity to change the status quo. And we're starting to trend, the status quo has got to go. Because it rings true. Republicans I talk to are very disenfranchised with their current representative. And some have even came to me and said, anybody that shows up as an incumbent is automatically getting booted out of office. Because to them, the status quo has got to go. When you put in more of an emphasis on your own power and prestige, or the money, you forget the most important key that there is, and that's the people. The people that elect you to lead. I will lead from day one because I will be that fighter. I will be that voice that we deserve in Northeast Indiana. And I will be that voice to give back to the community in a public servant role in which an elected leader should be. With your help, that will be a reality in 45 days. Because he doesn't know what's coming for him. He doesn't understand the bandwagon that's building. And each day, that bandwagon gets bigger, and on election day, to look him in the eye and say, this is a referendum. This is the chance that our people deserve. And now, the Northeast Indiana will have a better future through Justin Kuhnle. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. You know, one thing just in closing, I don't know if you remember last year, Congressman Stutzman, who's, if you're in the 3rd District, was one of the ones who voted to shut the government down and said, well, we'll shut the government down. We need to get something out of this. What it is, I don't know, but we need to get something out of it. You know, I think people are really tired of, of these politicians putting their needs in front of needs of the people. I mean, I just think it is just atrocious that somebody would just shut the government down just for personal gain. So we're done with our speakers, and we just have 2 things left. So the second to last is the Democrat of the Year. So Democrat of the Year is something we do every year for those who either have gone above or beyond or over a long period of time and benefited different things for the county party. So unfortunately, there were 2 winners. These 2 people could not make it today. The wife was sick. But those who come to our party meeting should know Merlin and Ruth Yoder. They've been around a long time. You know, they're the type of Democrats that come to our meetings. They're there every month. And, if it's changed, he doesn't have email, but I do make sure I call him, make sure that he will come to the meeting as it's changed. But they've been around for a long time, always helping the party. So we do have a gift for them. It's the Warsaw cut glass gift. We'll give it to them at the next meeting. So let's give it a play. Even though they're not here, let's give it a play. Okay, so in conclusion, the last thing we have, we can get Leanne Brown up here. Leanne is going to draw for the 50-50 split club. We'll see who the winner is for that. Oh, yeah.
Nobody's gotten their tickets and they want some, it's last chance. $1 for 1 ticket, 6 for 5, or David Colby's arm length for 10.
It's 78 inches, by the way.
It's quite a few tickets, so if I don't have anyone else wanting any. And it's a 50-50 split, and right now we have $80 in it, so someone's gonna come walking away from here with at least their ticket paid. arm length was the tickets, I think it's only fair that Dave draw the winning ticket.
Oh, my.
I think he got extra tickets because he's a little bit taller and has a bigger wingspan.
Who would like this?
And this is why Dave's arm length was long, so that's why you got tickets from him, because it's quite a few.